Hey, my name is Melinda Russell, and I am obsessed with telling the stories of women involved in motorsports, young and older, from all walks of life, currently involved in a wide range of roles or sharing their stories from the past. I'm a wife, mother of four adult children, and a mama of 16. In 2017, I was searching social media for a group dedicated to women in motorsports. When I didn't find what I was looking for, I posted a message to a few racing pages to see if any women would like to connect with me. And now I have thousands of women and men who are part of the Women's Motorsports Network. As crew chief of the only media company dedicated to women in motorsports, I work from wherever my travels take me, publishing this podcast, the Women's Motorsports Network News online magazine, and Let's Talk Racing Live, my social media show. You will hear from women who share their stories from the grid of life, how they manage the messy and memorable moments of family, work, and racing. You will hear their tried and true secrets of success and many other topics like friendships, family, hardships, and heroes that women deal with to balance the seasons of life. So grab your favorite beverage, pull up a seat, make sure you are comfy, and get ready to be inspired and encouraged from the stories on the Women's Motorsports Network podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest today is Sally Mott. Sally is very involved in motorsports. And actually, we were just at the Women with Drive event. And wow, you can't come away from that event, Sally, without just being so motivated, so excited about women in motorsports. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But first, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, anything that you want to share?
Yeah, so I think you did a pretty good intro. My name's Sally Mott. I am 19 years old. I have been racing since I was 8 years old. I've been driving since I've been, racing since I was 15, so about 5 years. But I have been in the seat since I was 8. So, starting in karting, it built a pretty good foundation for me. And I started that journey with my dad, actually, because he started karting when he was 8 years old as well. So he has, 40 years of experience. And we just started together. And, he always wanted a boy. He got one girl. So, you can imagine his excitement when I told him, "Hey, Dad, I want to go racing." And, he was like, "Yes." Right? We put the racing bug in her ear successfully. And after my first green flag that I've ever taken, I was hooked on racing, and it just went from there. I started winning some championships in racing. I mean, in karting, breaking some track records, and just fell in love with it to the point where I was like, man, I want this to be my career, and I need sponsors, I need all these things, and it just eventually led into getting into a car, right? Because if I wanted to do it as a career, I needed to move up. And then, we got a Miata, did some club stuff, got into Spec Miata, and then all of a sudden I won the 2023 Women's Initiative Scholarship in the MX5 Cup. And then I was like, oh, wow, I'm going racing in IMSA. So yeah. I just did my first rookie season in MX5 Cup this year. And I'm getting ready for my second year right now to go to Daytona in January of 2025.
Yeah. And, you talk about, it was kind of overwhelming at first. There were so many things you had to do, not to mention just getting the car ready and a race suit and a helmet and all those things that, we just kind of take for granted. But sponsors, and we got to figure out how we're going to pay for this, and where are we going to go, and what are we going to do? And it can be overwhelming, especially I think for people who haven't ever been involved in racing or haven't followed racing. They don't even know where to start. And so I love that there's so many people out there, racers, that are like, just ask. Everybody's so willing to help get other people going, aren't they? We all want people to love what we love. And And so we're happy to help and get people started for sure. So why don't we start with what you're going to be doing this year, and then we'll kind of go back from there.
Yeah, so I am going to be doing my second year in a Mixed 5 Cup, going for top fives, making some history in the series. There's never been a woman driver who's won, who's consistently been at the front. So that's my goal this year. We just moved to JTR, which is one of the top teams. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. And it's all about the mental preparation and the sponsors and the networking. And 90% of it is what you do off track and what you're doing at home every single day in between races, so that when you show up, you're prepared, because you're not going to win just by showing up and learning the most you can in 2-3 sessions, right? You have to show up with that knowledge and be prepared and just know what you're going to do. You have to be visualizing, you have to be doing all these things to be a champion. And so, it's been a lot of that this year, learning that, developing my process, like what works for me to get into that zone. And this year is about showing the world what I can do and who I am, and making a name for myself this year. So I'm really, really excited. And like I said, it's not all about what you do on track. A lot of it is, but you also have to go out there and network and spread your name and do the business interactions. And so doing stuff like this is really cool for me. So
it's true of any sport. If you could just get on the basketball court and win a championship without ever having to go to practice, everybody would do it. But that's not how things work. It's the same in a career, a sport, any of that. You have to prepare. You have to prepare physically, mentally, emotionally. It's hard to lose, and we know that in racing we lose way more than we win. It's just how it is. And the fact that, you're preparing outside of being in the race car is so good to remind the people that are listening, because it takes 24/7 almost preparation. I mean, I bet you think about racing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's my life. It's a lifestyle at this point.
It is. It totally is a lifestyle. And my daughters played sports, high school and that, but it wasn't something that they thought about 24/7. But racing is different. It gets in your blood. It's the people that you meet. It's the friends you make. And it totally becomes a lifestyle. And so that's why I love interviewing women in motorsports, because everybody has a similar story in some ways, but they're all different. And everybody gives me a little golden nugget that I can share with people that are listening. And the preparation part is a good reminder for everyone that's what we need to do. So you're going to start in January in Daytona. Tell me a little bit about the series that you run and some of the places where you'll be racing.
So the Mazda MX-5 Cup is considered by a lot of people as the most entertaining racing on the planet. And the reason for that is because if you look at our cars, we have an open cockpit, meaning the airflow, right, as it gets to the back of the car, it's not optimal. It's not very aerodynamic, meaning, we have to bump draft to be fast. And so bump drafting means there's contact. And when there's contact, there's usually some carnage, and it just makes for really good racing. Like as the viewer, I enjoy viewing it a lot. When I'm in the car driving, I'm like, oh my God, please don't do this. Oh my God, focus. Right? Because like you're going in an 8-car train on the banks of Daytona, going into the bus stop at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If someone makes one wrong move, you could all be
the
gone.
Race could be over. You'd all be crashed.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's, it is very intense, brutal at times, but the cars make for amazing drivers. Once you can understand the car and be fast in it, you can basically hop in anything and go pretty fast. I mean, I got the chance to drive a GT4 car with Erin Vogel at AE Victory Racing. She's the co-founder of Shift Up Now. And I was up to pace in my second session, and I'd never driven anything with horsepower. And
Mhm.
so basically, this series is a great place to build your name and
Yeah.
just, basically craft your racecraft, because you're you're battling with these guys. Like, there's things
Yeah.
that I never even heard of when I got into the series, like the body language of your car, right? Like when you're looking in your rearview mirror and you see the guy pull out like he's going to pass you, but he's actually not, because he's trying to get in your head. Like, there's all these
Yeah.
psychological things, right? But
Games. They're
they're
games.
games, yes.
Yeah.
In qualifying, I mean, there's people parked on the straightaway, and like to the point where the race director has to make new rules just for us. Like, okay, guys, a you have a minimum track time that you have to hit, like a lap time, and if you don't hit it, then your fastest lap goes away, right? Stuff like that. As of this year, we actually went to Canada. We went to Motorsport, and so that will be on the schedule again in the 2025 season. It starts off at Daytona, and then we get to race in the streets of St. Petersburg with Indy.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll
That's
be so fun.
amazing. I've never driven a street course. It's 200% wall, so
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. Not really. I'm excited though. I think it'll be great. And then we race at Barber in Alabama, which is also sanctioned with IndyCar.
Hmm.
And then it will be, I know we have Mid Ohio, VIR, Road Atlanta, and CTMP, which is in Canada. So, mostly on the east side, and then
Yeah.
some international stuff.
So Mid Ohio is one of my favorite places to go, and several of those tracks you mentioned I haven't been to. So maybe not a fair assessment, but my husband and I ride motorcycles. I don't ride like I used to. I had to sell my motorcycle because I had back surgery, and long story. But my husband still has his Yamaha FZ1, and we would go to Mid Ohio to the motorcycle races. And let me tell you, there is no better place
I
to
know.
watch racing. I love that track, and it's so beautiful there.
It is.
And it's just a great place to go to watch any kind of racing. And then we just enjoyed going there so much. We did that for quite a number of years, and then they kind of changed the superbike racing system, and it wasn't the same, and so we kind of quit going. But I would love to go to see a car race there, because I haven't ever done that, and that's a great place to go. I know VIR is also another really beautiful, great place to go. I'm sure they all are.
Road Atlanta. There's so many. Laguna.
There's-
We went to Laguna.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
there's so many. And I would love to be able to experience every one of those tracks, and maybe one day I will be able to check off some more of them. So I've been checking them off for NASCAR races, so I'll have to switch and check off some of these other tracks for sure. Yeah.
Yes, you should. And I think I connected the most with Mid Ohio specifically. Like, for some reason, I was able to get into the zone there. Like, both
Mhm.
races, I was so focused. I got so much like TV time, and I don't know. It felt like, I don't know if you've ever gotten into the flow, right? That zone
Yeah.
that especially racers are just trying to chase after. But for me, it came for me both races, and it was easy. I felt like I was just like, just hitting my marks. I was leading this pack of cars. I was getting TV time,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my God. The track just like flowed with me. Like, it just
Mhm.
clicks with my brain, and it's so pretty. And it's like in the middle of a cornfield, and you're in Ohio, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, where does all this beauty come from? It's just like the track. Oh my God, look at all these trees. And then you drive out of the track, and it's cornfields, and you're like,
Yeah.
what?
And there's shade trees for people to sit under, and it's just a really, I loved going there. I really, really did, for sure. So are there other women that you're going to be racing against, or mostly men?
Actually, big news this year. We're going to have at least 5 women drivers in the series,
Yeah.
which is unheard of. I mean, last year it was myself and another female. The year before, it was two. And so now we have, boom, 5, maybe even 6.
Yeah.
Because there is a top finishing female award at the end of every race, which, last year I got the majority of them, which is cool. But it's like, we're not here to be the best female driver. We're here to be the
Be
best.
the best driver. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's $2,000 per race if you win it. So it's like, I'll take the money, but like,
Right.
it's not something that I'm like extremely proud of because there was only 2 of us.
Yeah.
And that's not my goal anyways. So, you know.
It's like Bill McAnally says, once you put the helmet on, the car, the bike, whatever, doesn't know if you're a man or a woman. And so you're a racer. And that's what we should think when we see people racing, is not, oh, that's a girl racer, that's a guy. But, and you don't really hear people say, oh, that's a guy racing. But you do hear people say, oh, that's a woman driving that, you know. And so we've got to make it at some point to where it's normal for there to be as many women as men, or if not more. You know, let's outnumber them. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But 5 women racing, that's probably unheard of, and that's exciting.
It is. And, you know, I think the award will mean more this year, but it's still not like, for me, I'm just going to be in the front no matter what. I mean, that's the goal, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, I want to be leading the group of girls. But it is really cool because, I mean, this year it was just, like I said, there's only 2 of us. So I never really had someone that I could like be friends with on track and like, or like a community of them, because, you know, we both had our issues this year. I think just, you know, having that award is like dangling a carrot in front of you. It's like, oh, I can't be beat by one other person. You know what I mean? So I think having 5 of us, we might want to work together, and we could actually, I think it's going to open a lot of doors for the series as well for other women who are looking to maybe get into it. They'll be like, oh, wow, there's so many of them. Like, there's a place for me in the series. And so I think it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be a history year for MX5 Cup.
Yeah, I think so too. That's really super exciting for sure.
It is.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch, because I try to find where they're racing, and then, you know, try to watch as much as I can so that I get familiar with the women that are racing, you know, not just a name here or there, but I've actually watched them race, even if it's on television. So that's always exciting. So tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go on as far as, you know, family, siblings, pets, college, any of those things.
Yeah, I live with my dad. My mom she travels around the country. I get to visit her in California and all those things, and she helps me with my social media and kind of tries to help to like be my manager in a way. And my dad is my coach, you know, business coach, life coach, racing coach. He used to be my mechanic, you know, all the things. He helps with my mindset and, you know, how what I should do every day, go to the gym, get on the sim. We play ping pong together for reaction time, hand-eye coordination, focus. You know, he's encouraged me to read personal development books. You know, basically made me into the person I am today, which very grateful for that. I am an only child, so I do get to go racing. I don't think I would get to go racing if I wasn't an only child.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to college, I decided that I wanted to pursue racing full time, and I didn't have anything specific. Like, if I wanted to be a doctor, I would go to college. Racing, I'm like, you know what? I can teach myself a lot of these things. I can read books. I can, you know, there's a lot of like YouTube University, a lot of these things, right? And so I decided to save the money, save the time, and just pursue what I wanted to pursue, and kind of just, you know, go for my dreams. I know it's a long shot, and it's going to be hard, and there's going to be challenges, but like you were saying earlier, nothing easy is, you know, it's not going to be easy. If it's worth it, it's not going to be easy. So
that's right.
That's what I'm trying to say. But
nothing worth achieving is easy. You have to work at it, and you have to be dedicated to it. And, you know, more and more as we go through life, we have to be dedicated to it all the time. It's not a part-time hobby deal. It's constant. And even if it's reading a personal development book, that's still helping you with your racing. And so we have to just continue to do everything we can to be the best on or off the track. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. And good kudos to your dad for being your coach, life coach, everything coach, for sure. Yeah. So tell me about your car, the color, the number, how you chose all that, and then we'll move on to some more in-depth things.
Yeah, so my racing number has always been number 15. Um, my dad's has always been number 15 as well. And the reason is because he was born on August 15th. I was born on February 15th. So his
Okay,
half birthday is my birthday. My half birthday is his birthday. So it's like
that's
exactly
cool.
6 months apart. Yeah. And so that's always been his sentimental number. And so it just naturally came down to me. My birthday's on the 15th. Why not?
Yeah,
And then last year, when I won the scholarship, I got the chance to design my own livery and do all of that. And so I kind of, it's like a little bit cliche because I was like, you know what, I'm going to do pink because it's the color of women, right? Or like girls, like it's a girly color, right?
yeah,
So I was like, I'm not like gonna be, oh, I'm gonna be the best girl and I'm so girly and all that, because I'm really not. I'm kind of a tomboy, but I was like, I'm gonna do pink to kind of prove a point. I don't know, like
yeah,
I thought it was unique, and because there wasn't that many pink cars on the grid,
yeah,
and so I did pink, and it was a hit. I mean, everybody liked it, and it stands out. Like the point
yes,
was to be like on the TV broadcast, you can see it. It stands out.
right.
And so
It's not black, white, or red.
well, actually, like it was majority black with a lot of pink accents. Like
Yeah,
I don't know, but this year I'm going full blown pink, hot pink,
nice.
right? It's gonna
Love it.
So, anyways, that's kind of my thinking on that, and I think it's unique because there wasn't that many of them this year, and I don't think there will be this year either. So
Yeah.
hoping to stand out.
Well, and I get where I have people that say, "Oh, we just want to be one of the guys, so we are going to go with yellow or orange or whatever." And that's great. Everybody has an opinion and that's fine. But I also think that pink is, like you said, there's not 10 pink cars on the track. And if I'm watching and I want to follow my driver, I can follow pink much easier. And so I love that you're doing that. That's awesome for
Well,
sure.
thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So, how hands-on are you with your car?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would like to be. And the reason is because I think I started racing late. When I was 8 years old, I drove the cart at the track, and my dad would never let me practice the wrong line in case I ever wanted to race. And then there was that point where he asked me, do you want to go racing? And I actually said no because I was like, I'm scared to go race against the boys, which I wish I would have said yes because I would be so much better now.
Yeah.
But I think everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I said yes, I would have been burnt out.
Yeah.
So I think it all happens for a reason. But so I forgot where I was going with this. Where I was
About being hands-on. So,
yeah.
you had to learn how to drive and stuff before you could even begin to learn how to be hands-on.
Yeah. And so I started racing when I was 15. And so I never really like got the natural, like, oh, I'm going to get under the car and work on it. But like, I understood like adding more camber, adding more caster,
Mm-hmm.
Makes it do this, X, Y, and Z. And I could request like, hey, Dad, I want you to do this and this and this so that I can feel this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
But I never knew how to really throw a wrench. And so I kind of regret that because I think that understanding the mechanics of the car is very important. It would make me a better driver. And now that I'm racing in IMSA, it's more like it's a very professional setting where you basically send them the check. They take your car there. They travel with it. They do all the mechanic stuff. They put everything on. They do everything you need to do. You just show up and it's an arrive and drive, which is awesome, right? But I wouldn't mind like getting under the car and actually learning how to do these things. But it's such a professional environment that it's like they don't really want you to do that because that's their job. That's why they have mechanics there.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, unfortunately not. I think I'd be a better driver if I knew how, but
just understanding, a little bit about how it works, but I see why they do that and why maybe they don't want you under the car, because they don't want something changed that shouldn't be changed or whatever. So I kind of see both sides, but, driving also though gives you a feel for the car and how it works, and I'm sure you ask a lot of questions if you're not sure.
Many,
so
too many.
Yeah. never too many, Sally, never too many. So for sure. Now, what about marketing partners? How does that work with your car? Do you have to get those or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So unfortunately, there's no magic wand or somebody like an agent because I can't afford an agent right now. If I had all the sponsorship in the world, I would definitely have one.
yeah.
But there's no one to do that for me. And my dad has slowly stepped away. And, I'm the one who gets the invoices. I'm the one who takes care of the bills. I talk to the team owner. I do all the things. I make sure that if I want my seat lowered or if I want to dyno my car, that gets done. That's on me.
Okay.
And so it's also on me to get the sponsors and to get the money because, we only have so much money. I'm not
Yeah.
like super wealthy or anything. I wish my last name Mott was the applesauce company because
Yes.
but no, unfortunately, it's not.
Have you
So
contacted them?
I have, but it's so hard to get a hold of a company like that unless
I
you know
know.
someone personally who's like a high level. But
Yeah.
so
Well,
I
let's just put it out to the universe that we want Mott Applesauce to sponsor Sally Mott. And wouldn't that just be the best? See, I always thought that Kurt or Kyle Busch should be sponsored by Bush and not Kevin Harvick, but what do I know? So,
no, exactly. I mean, trust me, I've thought about it and I've reached out to them and done everything we can, but I think I found the most success in getting sponsorship with people who I like least expected, but people who I've really grown to actually get to know and to show them my personality. And we've like hung out and I've just talked to them as a person and not as a sponsor. For example, I met my first sponsor who has impacted my racing career significantly at a team dinner at Daytona. It was the Daytona 500, and I was invited by another sponsor who's very like small, but he invited me to come with them because he was sponsoring this NASCAR team. And so we're at a table with like 40 people, and I ended up sitting next to her, and I just started talking to her like a friend, and she just liked me, and we stayed in contact, and then she ended up making my racing career actually possible, like giving me the
wow.
funding to do it. And without it, I don't know if I would be here right now.
Yeah.
And recently I've had some similar interactions where I just liked the person, they liked me, we hung out,
Yeah.
and then boom. And it's never really like the cold emails, the cold calls,
No, those don't
the
work.
the LinkedIn like, "Hey, you're the marketing manager for Elf makeup," or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't really like, you have to have rapport, you have to have a
Hmm.
relationship with them for a long time for them
Yeah.
to even consider.
I agree.
And so it's easy for people to say like, "Oh, just go hit up makeup companies and go hit up X, Y, and Z." And it's like, that's not really how it works. You have to
No.
know these people from the inside, you
Yeah.
know? So
And you can't even imagine on their side how many times they get hit up for stuff.
exactly.
And so you have to find my son always used to say you have to find the person who cares. And so you have to find the person at those companies that either, like you said, you've got an in, they know somebody that you know, or they are a race fan and they happen to see you on the track or whatever it might be. It doesn't just happen when you I'm not a fan of any kind of cold calling first of all, I don't like doing it and I don't want somebody to do it to me. And so the relationship part is so important. And I push that so much on this show. You've got to build the relationships with people. And the fact that you sat next to her was not an accident. It was not. To me, they have different names for that. Not coincidence, but like a God wink or a this or whatever. You're there for a reason. You sat next to her for a reason. And so now we know why that happened. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
Go ahead.
oh, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I think racing has also brought me closer to that higher power. Like I've never been very extremely super religious, but I've always kind of like my family has always talked about something higher than ourselves. And there's been times in racing, like even last year, this year, things have just happened
Mm-hmm.
that like that just things that don't just happen to people. Like
Yeah.
like sequence of events. Like it had to be very specifically done this way, and it was, and then that led to this specific thing, to this, and now I am where I am.
Yeah.
Where it's like, how does that even come together? So it's very much brought me closer to that, and I think that's a really cool thing in racing. And I think that you need that. You need to have God or whatever you believe on your side. Like when I close my visor and I'm about to start my engine before a race, like I'm praying, you know, I'm asking for safety, for speed, to have fun, all these things. And so it's a big part of racing, I think.
It really is. And it's not talked about near enough because, you know, a lot of people do say, I'll say, what do you do right before you get started? You know, I pray with my dad, or I pray for safety, or whatever it might be. But we don't hear it as much as I think we need to, because it never hurts to have somebody else on your side, for sure. Yeah.
I agree.
So how about best finishes or most memorable moments, something along that line? What would you have to say about that?
Yeah, so I actually had my best finish of a P6 this year, and to get into the top 10 is really, really hard because this series, it is literally, you know, margin of victory for one race was 0.004 thousandths of a second.
Wow.
And so the top 10 guys are separated by like 0.3, which is crazy, right? And so if you're in the top 10, you're most likely on camera. And so for me, that was my goal. I was like, come on, it's my rookie season. Let me just at least get a top 10.
Yeah.
This race at CTMP, which is Canada, in Canada, I got a P6, and it was probably the best day of my life because of what happened after. So Brad is my crew chief. He was my crew chief this year. And Brad is a very goofy guy. He doesn't take himself too serious. He just loves what he does. And the team owner put him with the girl drivers because he's so patient. So he got paired with me this year. And, you know, there's like pictures of him and me all around my room, you know, because I don't know. We definitely built a relationship that is super unique. And so I made a bet with him, and I was like, hey, Brad, if I get a top 10 this year, you have to dye your hair bright pink. And so, you know, like 5 race weekends later, I finally do it. And he's like, oh no, you know, now we have to like go get my hair bleached, and then we have to dye it pink. And so anyways, after I won that race, I got some temporary hairspray because we're not about to like bleach his hair and do all that yet.
No.
For the sake of it, we got some like hairspray, and I got to spray it, and we had a whole party at the Airbnb with the team, and my other teammate got a third place, like a podium. And it was an amazing, like, I don't know. We just built so many memories. And, you know, that night it was one that I will never forget because the team grew so much closer that day. And it was such a successful moment because there's not many women in MX5 Cup who have done that. And I'm not like saying there was an incident in the race that took out a lot of the top guys. And so that allowed me to get that much further up.
However it works.
Which was really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So,
yeah. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge has been finding a place where I feel like I belong, I would say. In this series, it's very, very cutthroat. And there's a lot of guys, like there's a lot of men and boys, I would say. There's like a lot of teenage boys who, you know, they have a lot of ego, and they also look at girl drivers and they're like, oh my God, like she's going to suck. Like stay away from her. Like they're going to crash into me. Like all this negative chatter that goes around where you have to learn how to silence your internal monologue and come to a place where you feel comfortable enough to just do what you know how to do without getting in your head. Because I got a lot inside my head this year where it's like, you're your biggest enemy, right?
Yeah.
You're overthinking it. Stop overthinking it. Like just go do what you know how to do, and you're most likely going to do good.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, Daytona. So coming, you know, like this time of year, last year, I was freaking out. I was like, my first MX5 Cup race for the season, it's going to be at Daytona. Oh my God, Daytona. Oh my, it's so iconic. And like, there's going to be thousands of people, and it's going to be televised. And I was just like spiraling downwards, and I was freaking myself out for no reason. right? Because, I've been reading the mental psychology books and all this stuff. And the more I learn about it, the more it's like you're just hurting yourself by doing it.
Exactly.
You're not helping yourself. Like, you might be putting positive pressure. You think that you are, and you're making yourself, do better. But for me, I was hurting myself. And so, like right now, going into Daytona again, I feel a lot more confident. I feel more comfortable. I feel excited, actually. I'm not scared. I'm not like, oh my God, like so nervous. All my muscles are tensed up. I feel excited. I'm still nervous. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like, I feel like I'm in a much better place. But I did battle that all year this year.
There's nothing wrong with being nervous, because I hear people who maybe they're actors or whatever, and they always say being nervous kind of keeps you on the top of your game. If you go in kind of like nonchalant about it, you're not going to do very well. But being a little bit nervous is fine. But talking yourself out of being successful is not good. And so you've just got to stay positive and all those things. And I think that's true of, I'm sure a lot of women have that same issue, because that's kind of how we're made, even in life. We kind of we can get overwhelmed. We can talk ourselves out of being a good mom or a good wife or a good employee or whatever it might be. Whereas, really we need to be building ourselves up, and self-talk is pretty important, and it needs to be positive. And so I'm glad you learned that lesson. That's great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think social media has also influenced that in a negative way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just having like a spotlight on you being, one of the new drivers, being one of the scholarship winners, like all these things, there's a lot of people watching. So it puts pressure on you to like also do things on social media. Like, you need to post more, and like you need to look a certain way, and you need to post a certain way, and you and it just makes you overthink. And like the more that you just scroll on Instagram, like or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, TikTok, like it's just a comparison culture where you're just comparing yourself constantly, and it's so toxic.
It is toxic.
And I felt like every time I want to reach for my phone to just scroll, like I have no purpose. I'm just like, oh, I'm just bored. Like, I'm like, no, I'm just going to read a book or do something else. And I feel like it's been a lot better. Like, I feel more positive dialogue in my head, if that makes sense.
I think we've learned over the last many years of social media that it's not the thing we need to do when we're bored every time. There's a lot of other things that are more beneficial. And I think it's starting to kind of work its way back to maybe not scrolling all the time, finding other things to do. So, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about being involved in motorsports?
I would say the life lessons that I've learned, and the life lessons that present themselves through racing, because I can apply them in any area of my life. It's a very empowering sport, especially as a woman, because you are surrounded by men telling you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so when you do, it gives you this sense of like, I can do anything, even when it's not racing, it's business, or, I need to go talk to that CEO and I need to put myself in their conversation and, do all these things that a normal teenager or a normal person would just be intimidated by.
Right.
Because you've done way worse things, or more, I wouldn't say worse, more scary things. It seemed worse in the moment because you were like, there's no way I can full throttle down that insane mountain corner. Like, you're falling down this hill and it's like, you got to go full throttle. You can do it.
Yeah.
Because, what's worse than that? Come on. You're just talking to somebody.
Yeah.
So I would say that's my favorite part of racing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good answer. I like that. So we talked about other females that you've raced against. I'm excited that you're going to have a whole group of you this year. What's your goal for your racing career?
My goal is to create a name for myself here in IMSA, MX5 Cup, if that is what does it. But my ultimate goal would be I want to race with the Iron Dames.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to be on the podium at the 24 Hours of Le Mans with them. That is my ultimate goal. I would say once that is done, all said and done, and Sally Mott is a name that a lot of people know. It's like a household thing. I want to create a racing school for younger women to find a ladder system, because there's not really a ladder system very much set in place. When I was in karting, I knew that I wanted to do this as a career, but I wasn't really sure, like, should I get into a Miata or should I get into this? Or like, I don't know. So I would want to have young women or little girls, 5, 6, come to my racing school. It's kind of like Skip Barber, but it's specifically for younger women.
Yeah.
And I would have, I would have a section for if you wanted to do formula cars, sports cars, or stock cars, like NASCAR stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of just give back to the racing community in a way that other people have, and make it easier, because it's really hard as a woman, and it's also hard to get sponsors. And that's a universal issue. So, making maybe even like a program incorporated into my racing school, but something like that.
Yeah. That's, I love that, because you're thinking so forward and how you're going to help those little girls. One of my questions that I'm going to ask you, but I think I already know the answer. Do you think motorsports is a good sport for girls to be involved in? And the hardest part, I think, or one of the hard parts, Sally, is the not knowing the next step. So I'm racing quarter midgets, let's say, and I'm really good at it, but I want to be the next, NASCAR driver. What's my next step? Well, the boys do it this way. Is that the best way for me to do it? And so having a special place where girls can gather. Girls have different issues than guys do. When I interview women, they're moms, they work a job, they're wives. They not only have to get themselves to the track, but they have to figure out who's watching the kids, who's going to feed them, all these things. Whereas, no offense, guys, because I love the guys too. The guys get the car ready and off they go. And the wife's at home getting the kids ready to go watch the race. So women do tend to have other issues, other things that they have to manage. And that's part of what your school would teach them, I think, too, is how to manage and how to have a balance between racing and real life and all those things. And wow, I think you need to find somebody who's going to put their money where their mouth is and help you with that, because I can see that would be a very successful school. Based on all the girls and women I talk to, I don't think you'd have any trouble filling those classes.
Well, thank you. I think it's something that we need. I mean,
I do too.
It's something that doesn't exist right now, and so if I can be the person to do that, that would be awesome. If it's already a thing by the time I get to it, awesome. We'll do one even better. I don't know. Have more opportunities, right? More choices.
There's room for more than one.
There is.
So, you've put the idea out there. There's room for more than one for sure. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit before we get any farther here about the Women with Drive. I've been to 3 of the 4, and they just keep getting better and better and better, and more women and more women. And we had around 650 women, a few men, that congregated in Indianapolis to talk about women in motorsports. What would you say is maybe your overall thoughts about that event? What was your biggest takeaway? Just share a little bit about how you felt about being part of that.
Yeah, I think that it was an amazing event this year. I was there last year at Phoenix. And so I agree. I think it got better and just more grander. I mean, the speakers.
Yeah.
I was very engaged, and the panels and in the driver workshops, amazing. I mean, there was one specifically where the speakers were crying because of how much emotion and how much they were just, their heart was in it, and you could tell. And I was like, this is so perfect. And I mean, there was a workshop with, a guy who wrote a book about mental performance, and he had us do we're holding pendulums and doing all these activities that it was like an actual driver workshop. And I enjoyed it a lot. I think it was very well thought out, and everything was very well done. The only thing that I would have done differently is added some more space in between so that we could have more opportunity to network.
I agree.
I had so many people on my list that I wish I could have had like the proper time to talk to, because I found them eventually, but it was in between.
Yeah.
Like, okay, some people were going out to get food, but I would have to leave this panel, and I couldn't hear it because I had to go out there. I was like, I have to talk to this person. So there wasn't enough time to like really network. But other than that, I think it was very well done, and I got a lot from it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the networking. I've met a lot of women. I had interviewed quite a number of women that I had never met in person, who I got to meet in person. But I felt like I was rushed to find them and to really have a chance to really talk to them. And so that was in my feedback that I sent back to Cindy, that, a little bit, maybe like a networking reception or something where, it's just a time when you can really say, okay, here's who I really want to talk to. I really admire this person or whatever. And so, I had the same feedback. I just think every year the panels, the information, the guest speakers, they just get better and better. And I mean, they were wonderful the first year in Nashville. I came away from there just like on top of the world. My husband was like, I'm so glad that we came to this for you, And so for it to get better and better, that's hard to top. But if anybody can do it, it'd be Lynn and Cindy, that's for sure.
They do an amazing job. They're so funny too. I mean, they crack everyone up. It's awesome. I love it.
They're just the best for sure. So looking forward to next year already. I've already kind of got it penciled in on my calendar for sure.
Me too.
So how do you think you've had an impact, or if not yet, what kind of impact would you like to have on motorsports, let's say when you're my age and you're, on the other end of the age bracket? I mean, the school, I can see that would be a huge impact. Anything else that you can think of that you'd like to say, Sally Mott made motorsports for women better because?
That's a good question. I've never thought about that in that way. I think something that I really like the idea of being a maverick, and, like with the school, for example, being the first one to do that. That's something that appeals to me, because when you're the original and you do something that nobody's ever done, it's cool, because, you're a trailblazer and you're doing all these things. And so I think that the school idea it would be my biggest contribution to motorsports. But I think to answer your because question, I mean, it's too simple almost. It's just my passion for it. And because I went through all of these things and I'm not even done yet.
You're way too young.
I'm not where I want to be. But as I am going through the struggles, and I'm feeling the stress of, oh my God, I'm going into the 2025 racing season and I don't have enough money. What am I going to do? How am I going to make it work? How am I going to just go get the money? And like, I can't just quit. Like, I'm not going to let myself run out of the funding. Like, I'm just going to have to make it work. And so being in those stressful situations, you're teaching yourself in a way. Like, I'm learning so much on this journey, because I'm learning how to just be like, no, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to not be at the racetrack because I can't find the money. I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm just going to do it. And so I'm kind of embracing the struggle. I mean, the struggle is real. Okay.
It is.
It's so real, but it's like, you can learn so much from that. Again, like the life lessons, right?
Yeah.
So I know that it's hard, but I know that, like, at the end of the season, I'm going to be like, wow, I can't believe it all came together the way it did. And, I had faith and it ended up happening. And so I'm almost taking notes for the future of when I'm having my school. I'm going to be like, okay, you will go through X, Y, and Z. You will do it, but you have to, you have to have these traits and these qualities to get through it, because everyone's going to go through it. And so anyways, I guess my point is, I love it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go through the struggles so that I can teach these young girls
Yeah.
want to make it as well, what it takes.
And that's more life lessons, because
Yeah.
life can be a struggle, and so it's a way to learn how to manage and how to not ever just give up. Don't give up, you know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sally, how do we follow you on social media? What platforms? How do we follow where you're racing, what you're going to be doing, your results, that kind of thing?
Instagram is my main thing. It's Sally Mott Racing, and then my website, sallymottracing.com.
Okay.
Facebook, Sally Mott.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Sally
Easy.
Mott Racing, everything. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I would definitely appreciate that for sure. Trying to
Yeah.
grow my brand and all the social media platforms. So all the support I can get is gonna be amazing. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell the gals, easier for me to follow you if you tag me. So Women's Motorsports Network,
all
tag
right.
me when you post, race results and that, because as you can imagine, I get a lot. I've got thousands, literally thousands of women that I've made connections with. And I would follow every last one of them if I could find them and know where they're racing and keep track of them all. So if you tag me, Women's Motorsports Network, that'll be the best, and I'll be able to follow you easier and keep track of what you're up to. Anything that we haven't talked about that you want to share, or that we should have talked about, or something that I just made such an obvious mistake that I missed?
I think you asked very good questions. I think you covered a lot of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Sounds good. I've done a few of these. I think you're number like 260 or something like
wow.
that.
Okay. Who's the most I have a question for you.
Okay.
Who is the most impactful a woman who has succeeded in her racing career to the point of like she is now a household name? Have you ever had any interviews like that who are, their careers just rocketed?
Here's the thing. And when I talk to people and I tell them that I have a motorsports business, and it's I connect and celebrate women in motorsports through podcasts, and I have an online magazine that I'm going to kind of make some changes to for this year. Still write stories, but not necessarily in magazine form. But when I tell people that, the first, who do you think the first person is they say to me? Oh, kind of like Danica Patrick.
Yeah.
And so that's the person that, if they follow racing at all, even a little, they've heard of her. She was the GoDaddy girl, and they saw her on TV, and so I haven't interviewed her because, to be honest, it's been very difficult to make that connection. I haven't given up, but I tell so many wonderful stories like yours, Sally. You don't have to be the most well-known woman in motorsports for you to have a great story and to have impact on the people that are listening. And so would I like to interview her? Yeah, absolutely. I interviewed Samantha Bush, but more about the infertility, thing in their life. But I always tell, I tell this, and it's probably sounds bad, but I'm going to say it again. So I had a woman who was, involved in motorsports and more on the business side. And she basically said to me, oh, well, have you interviewed anyone famous? Kind of in a snotty way. And I said, not really. I said, I tell the stories of all women, engineers, crew people, drivers, parents, track owners. I said, everybody has a story, and it doesn't have to be somebody famous for it to be a good story and for me to be able to share it.
I love that.
So, 98% of the stories I tell are women or girls, little girls, who you've never heard of. but who you may be going to hear of, or who, we're going to tell their story. And it only takes one person to hear that you want Mott applesauce to be your sponsor. And they're like, oh, my sister works there.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know. I don't know who's going to listen to this podcast. It's hard to say. It gets shared with 6,000 email addresses. It gets shared on social media, on all kinds of pages, racing pages. It's hard to say who's going to hear your story, but it only takes one person, the right person, and the person that cares. And so, I don't focus on how famous someone is. I focus on telling their story and sharing, and hopefully doing this podcast, you're going to be able to share it with someone who's going to help you, in your career. And if I can help one girl get, to where she wants to do what she wants to do in motorsports, then I've done my job, because that's just what I'm here for. So that's kind of a long answer to a question.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Anything else you want to share at all before we hang up?
I don't know. I mean, nothing really you asked some really good questions that I would usually, I've been asked that question at the end of interviews, and I have said it, but you actually asked it already. So
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate that you gave me some time today. It's my birthday today, Sally.
Happy birthday.
And I had somebody say to me, well, what are you going to do on your birthday? And I said, well, I have some podcasts scheduled to record, which is something I love to do. So great. And then I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I'm a Lions fan. Who's not? I heard somebody say, oh, the Cowboys are no longer America's team. The Lions are. I'm like, yes. So I'm going to watch the Lions play football tonight. And my husband wanted to take me out to dinner. And I said, no, let's just order pizza or something and stay home and watch the Lions. And so, it's a low key birthday, but I'm doing the things that I love. So, that's what you should do on your birthday for sure.
Well, thanks for giving me time on your birthday.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sweet. Appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
Hope you have a great one, because
I am. And we haven't had sun in Michigan for probably 2 weeks, seriously. Really? And the sun is shining today, and it's about 50 degrees. So, it's a good day all around for sure. So Sally, thank you for being with me. And I'm going to be following you a little closer now. And you make sure you tag me so that I can, keep track of what you're up to. And that way I can share it too, which I like to do. And I hope you have a great 2025, where it's only a couple days away. So we got to be ready, don't we?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah. I hope you have a great one as well. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. Subscribe to my show and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you or someone you know would like to be featured in the Women's Motorsports Network News online magazine, this podcast, or Let's Talk Racing Live, my social media show, contact me via Messenger on Facebook at Melinda Russell, or send me an email at womensmotorsportsnetwork@gmail.com.